Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel Maria Ducuţă. I invite you to hit subscribe and turn on notifications to receive everything I get to post in here. Tonight I would like to talk about a topic that I get a lot of messages about and I get asked about a lot. Namely, emotional triggers and why these emotional triggers are so important to us, and also what exactly these emotional triggers tell us about our inner thoughts, about our subconscious mind, and how can we work with these emotional triggers in such a way that we don't get to suffer for every little thing, but instead we get to understand the root cause of that thing that is triggering us, and hence we get to actively work with our issues. An emotional trigger, it's basically anything that makes me feel in a certain way. This way, it's a very intense feeling. I get to experience even physical reactions such as sweat, or dizziness, or my face can start to turn red, or I can turn pale. I basically am incredibly uncomfortable, and I also get to be at times very confused because my emotions can be incredibly contradictory. For example, when I am told by someone that I look bad, that I am stupid, that I do something wrong, I can get emotionally triggered, or I cannot get emotionally triggered. And which is the difference? Well, the difference is actually what I feel and what I think about myself. For example, if I have been raised by a family that has been abusive towards myself, in my early childhood or in my late childhood, or in even in my adult phase, if I was raised by people that told me I am not good enough, if I was abused emotionally, if my emotional needs were repeatedly not respected and were violated by these members, well, then every time I get to hear what I was previously told by people that are important to me, were important to me, I experience a very, very intense feeling of discomfort, of sadness, of anxiety, and I feel the need to react in a certain way. So we can say we are emotionally triggered every time we feel the need to respond to the way in which someone addresses our issues, or talks to us, or tries to get a reaction from everything we feel about that person. Emotional triggers are incredibly revealing for our emotional wounds and whatever needs to be healed. Because how can I know better what needs my whole attention right now, if not by my own reactions, by my own moods? And there, in my moods, in my needs, in the way I react to other people, I get the answer to many of my questions, such as why am I unhappy in my relationship? Why I cannot bond with people? Why cannot I form meaningful relationships with people, relationships that get to last a lifetime? And the answer is that we get emotionally triggered by certain aspects that many times prevent us from living a certain life, from living our life. Emotional triggers are bringing to the surface whatever lies in our subconscious. Our subconscious, it's a 24 hours a day machine that works continuously. It works with information that I have previously accumulated, but it also works with information that I am providing right now at this very present moment. I am feeding my subconscious mind. I am feeding my subconscious mind with what I read, what I hear, with the way in which I think about other people, with what I tell other people, with what I tell myself, with everything that is happening in my life right now. And at a certain point in my life, I get to experience this subconscious through certain manifestations, such as anger, such as disappointment, such as rage, such as deep sadness. And then I say, wow, what was it, that thing, that little thing that made me have such an intense reaction towards it? Where did I miss the point? Where did I go wrong in understanding what exactly is happening over here? Because an emotional trigger does not care about my wisdom, about my experience. I just feel at that specific moment so annoyed, so sad, so angered that I cannot control the way in which I feel. And that emotional trigger, basically, it's not the fault. The emotional trigger is not the problem. The emotional trigger is just the thing that shows me where exactly it's rooted my wound, where exactly I have to go back and heal some things, because it is not the fault of a trigger for being pushed, right, by someone. Someone pushes the trigger is innocent. The trigger is just being pulled. But the person that does this thing, it's the main factor. So in our case, we can say that it's the emotion that matters, and the trigger, it's not at fault in this situation. Basically, the trigger just comes to show me something that it's already happening inside myself. So, for example, if I have been single for a period of time and someone calls me in a very peaceful way, someone tells me, well, that's just you. You are someone special. You don't like everybody. I can be emotionally triggered. I can ask myself, oh, so other people are thinking about me, that I am unavailable, that I am not attractive. Maybe I should be in a relationship. And I feel triggered. Why? Because I myself think that too. But if I don't feel that I should be in a relationship, if I am perfectly fine with myself, I tell that person, nah, I'm fine, thank you. It's very nice that you are concerned for me, but I'm doing perfectly fine, thank you. Why is that? Well, because I am not emotionally triggered. Because there is no issue that is triggered. Hence, I am perfectly at peace. Or if someone calls me stupid. If I have heard this word many times before in my life, if I have been called stupid by many people, by my professors, by my family, by my relatives, and they tell me that I'm stupid, and if I have a record of being mocked at, of being humiliated, even if someone jokes around and calls me stupid, I will feel deeply wounded. Why? Because a wound that it's deeply rooted inside my subconscious mind will get to the surface. And what I am doing at that point when I am called stupid, it's basically just opening the box and bringing to the surface whatever is inside the box. But it is not the fault of the box that there is something inside of it. So I should think of things as they are. And if I have been triggered, this is not something bad. This is a great opportunity for me to further investigate the causes of this emotional triggering. And it's very interesting to look at what exactly pushes our buttons. Because in many cases, we can be we can feel offended by things that are so unimportant. And in other cases, we don't feel offended by words, let's say, that are even more harsh than what we've heard before. But we get triggered only by specific things. And which are these things? Well, these things are our previously recorded emotions as being damaging. We store emotions as well as thoughts in our subconscious mind, and we get to experience these emotions and thoughts in many situations, but particularly in situations where we are challenged, where we feel abandoned, where we feel betrayed, where we feel angered. And a very, very deep emotion reveals many things about me. And the first thing that I should do when I am emotionally triggered is to stop for a minute or 2 minutes and to ask myself, why is this thing so important to me? Why do I feel in this way? With which moment of my past experience do I associate this emotion? It is very important. It can be the moment when I was eating yogurt with my football team. I was 11 and my coach said that I cannot play football. It can be the moment when I wanted to wear the yellow dress and my parents didn't let me wear it because it was too cold outside. And hence I feel that I am always being prohibited from doing certain things. It can be the moment where my husband was abusive towards me, telling me that I am not good enough and that I should just mind my own business without ever being involved in his business. But it's very important to see if whatever I'm experiencing at this present moment can be traced back to what I have experienced in the past. If I can do this, I am halfway through the first stage of confronting an emotional trigger, namely awareness of trauma, awareness of the root cause of fear. This kind of awareness can come with a lot of pain. I can feel at times incredibly deceived by myself, and I can feel that I am a weak person, but never ever should I consider myself weak for bringing to the surface my emotions, because my true power as a human being is to deal with my emotions. When I deal with a certain emotion, I do not let that emotion control me. And in a certain way, I get to control that emotion and I get to experience it my way, not the way in which my past makes me believe that it should be. It's very interesting how we are even reacting to emotional triggers, because, for example, when you are browsing your Facebook list or when you are browsing your messages, you are basically thinking in categories. You are thinking and you are labeling people according to your past experience with them. It's when you go through your Facebook list, it's Linda, the beautiful girl, it's Jack, the handy boy, it's Janie, my ex-teacher, it's Jenna, the friend of everybody. So it's always a face related to the way in which that person made you feel and the skills that person displayed towards you, not towards other people. So basically we can say that we always interact with the way in which someone made us feel, not someone made us think. And what we get to remember, it's the emotion we experienced at that particular moment when we met someone or when we shared something pleasant or unpleasant with someone. The second thing that I should be doing with an emotional trigger is totally embrace it. It is so important after I have fully agreed and just recognized that thing as emotionally triggering to me. It's important to embrace it. It's important to accept it and not to deny it and not to find fault with other people and say, this is emotionally triggering because this person, it's mean, it's evil, it's rude towards me. It can be. But the point is not to point fingers and not to find the guilty person outside myself, but to further investigate inside myself and to see exactly how do I cope with this pain that triggered a specific emotional response from me in such a way that I get to learn from it, that I understand it deeply and thoroughly, and I can do something useful with it. So not pointing fingers for something that's emotionally triggering, it's so important. If someone is humiliating me at my job, if someone is abusive towards me in my own family, if I am being neglected, if I am being abandoned, if anything not right happens to me, okay, of course, it's important not to stay there and be abused and say, I'm happy to be abused, but it's also incredibly important to see why and how is this person's behavior affecting my own emotions, and if I am overreacting to something, to anything. This definitely means that I am actually reenacting a certain past trauma that I didn't heal properly, and now I am immersed into that emotion, which is brought to the present moment every time someone or something makes me feel that way. So embracing an emotional trigger, it means to be fully accepting of the fact that it is not your fault, it is not someone's fault that you felt in a certain way. You just stick with it. You just accept that emotion and you are aware of it, and you understand that, one, you are not that emotion, that it's normal to experience emotions, and that emotions come and go. And when you understand this, you can say to yourself, okay, what am I experiencing right now? A feeling of loneliness? A feeling of being abandoned? I do not deny it. This is what I feel. I fully embrace it. And then we get to the third stage of addressing an emotional trigger. And that means to reprogram my emotional response. How can I reprogram an emotional response? Well, basically, reprogramming an emotional response, it's finding another way of responding to something that triggers you, and instead of being angered or saddened by it, to learn something from it and to switch from a negative point of view to a positive point of view. This means that when I get to experience this certain trauma of a past event, that it's associated with loss, deceit, with fear, with abandonment, with loss, with losing someone dear. Well, after I am aware of the emotional trigger, after I embrace it, I do something about it. And this means actively coping with your past emotional response in such a way that I recognize the emotional trigger, I embrace it, and then I totally react differently. This means that if I would cry myself to sleep normally after being emotionally triggered, and if I would just eat ice cream and watch sad movies, I decide to do something different. I call a friend to talk about my feelings. I write in my journal. I start to dance. I sing a song. So what I am doing is that I am reprogramming my emotional response to a certain emotional trigger by active participation with the emotion. I need to do the dirty work with emotions. I need to get involved with them if I want to change them. I cannot step aside and let emotions take control and then complain about it. If I want to participate actively in changing my emotions, I need to address them fully. And this means to be present in all range of emotions that I am experiencing, and not being busy with labeling them, rather with having compassion towards myself enough to understand that I am a complex human being, and that whatever I am experiencing, it's part of my journey. And it's perfectly normal, and it doesn't mean that I am less lovable, less important, that I am less of a person if I am experiencing a bunch of emotions that I just wasn't expecting. It's like you are having unexpected guests and you are blaming yourself for this when you don't accept your emotions. And you say, I am such a stupid person because I have unexpected guests. But those guests are not your fault. And it's the same thing with emotions. Of course, if you get to entertain those guests and if you convince them to stay, then it's your fault because you made them stay. But when we talk about emotions, we talk about change. And we talk about a process, and yes, I can reprogram my emotional response to something when I choose to break away the tradition of complaining, of trying to find a blame in someone else, or being revengeful, or start being mean. We see so many people incredibly aggressive, incredibly mean. Why are they like that? Because they are emotionally triggered and they don't know what to do with their emotions. They don't talk to their emotions. They just stay there and they express that rage in words. And when someone is angry towards us, it's so important to have compassion towards him or her, and to just say to ourselves, oh, this person has just been emotionally triggered by someone, but he or she doesn't know how to deal with it. So I will just let this person get off his chest this emotion that he couldn't or she couldn't process properly, and I will not get involved with these emotions. I will just let this person experience his or her own emotions, and that's it. So changing or reprogramming an emotional response, it's difficult. It can be done through prayers, meditation, any sort of energy work. It can be done through discipline. This means that, okay, when I feel angry, I know that I do a certain set of physical activities. I go out running instead of entering a huge conflict with someone. And reprogramming an emotional response means to react in a completely different way than before to something that it's deeply disturbing to you, it's triggering you, but you just react differently to it for a long period of time. So you cannot reprogram an emotional response in 2 or 3 days, because then you get back to your old habits and you say, this doesn't work for me. Of course, anything to work for you, you need to work for it. So it has to be both ways. You cannot have things that you haven't worked for because you are not there. And when you are not involved in the process doesn't belong to you. And emotional triggers are telling us a lot about our stereotypes, about our deep wounds. And if we take a step back from the roles that we play in our lives, if we are the observer of our reality, we understand that emotional triggers are a blessing in disguise, because we understand so much about ourselves. And we understand even our relationship with certain persons. We understand that relationship in a different way, because I can look at what is triggering me in this specific relationship that I have with my mother, with my father, with my husband, with my children. And I can see exactly, what do I need from this person? Do I need more attention? Do I need more love? And if the answer is yes, then I can proceed further. And I can further investigate and find out what is the matter in here. Am I not being able to give love Or am I not being able to receive love? So emotional triggers are important because they are a gate to our subconscious, and they are bringing to the surface many things that are buried very, very deeply in our minds, and they are buried there precisely because they are at many times unpleasant, they are very intense, and it's very interesting because an emotional trigger can just happen when I am having a good day, when I am watching TV, when I hear something or someone mentioning a very little part of that trauma that I had in the past, and even the word, it's bringing me back there, and so I feel triggered. So in these moments, it is important to go through all the steps that I have mentioned before when addressing an emotional trigger, and not to let myself be dragged there, because I cannot expect to change the way in which I react to an emotional trigger if I do not participate in changing my ways of addressing my emotions. Because yes, emotions are a very, very important part of our life. And whatever we experience it with our emotions. And when I am fully aware of what I feel, and I am deeply connected with what I feel, then I know that everything that I feel is for my own sake, because I am not letting myself defeated by my vulnerability, but I am using my vulnerability to find out more things about myself. How can I grow my potential? How can I develop myself more? What is holding me back, emotionally speaking, from being the person I want to be? This was the video for today about emotional triggers. I hope that you enjoyed it. I invite you to hit subscribe to my YouTube channel, Maria Ducuţă, and of course to hit like to my Facebook page, Maria Ducuţă, and we also meet on Instagram. It's the same name. I wish you an absolutely fantastic evening, and see you soon.